fractional in this part of the world is very new. I mean, I think I only heard about it when we first started talking, right? But in more mature markets, in Europe, in the UK, in the US, fractional's been going for a while.
The reason why fractional in Dubai, in my opinion, should boom a lot more over Abu Dhabi is that Dubai is full of SME, a lot more so than Abu Dhabi, 10x, 15x, I would say. And there's so many SMEs that my honest view is that we could hire someone full-time in the business for, I don't know, 20, 30K, whatever it is. And they'd be there every day and they'd be very good. They'd probably be realistically in this market, maybe newly qualified, second-time mover maybe. You could get someone very, very good, but then you could get someone who's worth their market raise a lot more than that. Hey there, listeners. Can you believe it? We're already on season 4 of the Alchemy Uncensored podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got one quick favor to ask. I'm sure anyone that listens to podcasts will know what I'm about to ask. But if you've been loving the journey so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, especially as we keep leveling up this season. And while you're at it, why not leave us a review? Your feedback has been a huge part of what's gotten us to season 4, and it helps us keep bringing you the content you love. And of course, one more thing. If you're feeling extra generous, share this episode with a friend who'd love to hear it. Let's grow this amazing community together. And all right, that's it for now. So let's get straight into the show. Thank you. Welcome back to Alchemy Uncensored podcast. It's incredible. We're already on our 4th season, and we're excited to continue bringing you honest conversations, fresh perspectives, valuable insights from leaders across the UAE's finance and tax sector. I'm Conor McHugh, founder of Alchemy Search. And before we dive into today's conversation, we're excited to announce our partnership with Alan, the Middle East's leading corporate card and expense management platform. Alan helps companies eliminate petty cash, reimbursements, and manual reconciliations by automating expense tracking, approvals, and accounting, so finance teams get more control and visibility without the manual work. Today's episode features Carl Lewis. Carl is a fellow of CIMA with more than 25 years of finance leadership experience across the UAE. His career has spanned global organizations and major government-related entities, including BP, ENEC, Etihad Rail, TACA Distribution, and Dulsco Group, covering everything from management accounting and reporting to large-scale finance transformation initiatives. After years in senior corporate finance roles, Carl transitioned into the world of the Fractional CFO services, supporting SMEs across contracting, construction, recruitment, and professional services. He's now closely working with founders and leadership teams to improve cash flow, scale sustainability, and gain a clearer understanding of the financial side of their business. Well, Carl, we got there in the end. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to be here. Yeah, good to see you. Fancy for a week.
First podcast experience?
Yeah, first. It's nice. Different. Little nerve-wracking, but you know.
You're well able to talk. I know that much. So, Carl, look, I know I've given you a bit of a brief overview of your experience, but I'll never do it justice. If you can just give our listeners, who is Carl? You know, where you're from, what you've been doing, and how you found yourself in the seat you're in today.
Well, I'm from Wales. Yeah. Fellow Celt.
Listeners will tell you.
Yeah, exactly. From a seaside town, Swansea. I grew up in manufacturing initially and then ended up working for BP because BP were one of the biggest employers in the region. So sat with them for a number of years in the UK. And the refinery I was working at, it was interesting. It was one of the oldest refineries in the UK. It was built there, I think just after the First World War. And it was a little old. And BP decided that they wanted to shut it down because it didn't have all of the mod cons and the infrastructure that was needed. Nothing to do with me as a finance guy, I've got to be honest. I got the opportunity to either go to Brussels or come to the UAE. And I took the UAE.
Many years ago?
1998. So a long time ago. I think the Abu Dhabi guys did a bit of a number on me because I came for the interview in February. So I went for an interview in Brussels and it was absolutely pelting down with rain. And then I came here, beautiful sunshine, Abu Dhabi beaches. I was 4 days, I think, interview for half a day. The rest of the time was just having a look around and ended up picking the UAE. Spent 5-6 years seconded into Admiropco and decided to stay when they wanted to send me back to Aberdeen and continued within the oil and gas business. I worked for McDermott. I headed up their shared services function, which was interesting because you're moving away from pure accounting at that point in time and you're dealing more with people and processes. And then I was there for about 3 years. Did a little bit of a stint after that in construction and contracting. and then got the opportunity to work for ENEC. I think ENEC became incorporated the 31st of December 2009, and I joined January 2010. And then Abu Dhabi government for a number of years, for about 14 years or so, in different guises. And then I had the opportunity of working for Dulsco, which was interesting because you're kind of moving away from a government function into a more of a commercial function. There for 2 and a bit years again, and unfortunately got made redundant. Yeah. And then at that point, you have you go through a bit of a few life choices. And I came to one of your events.
Yeah, that's how we met, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And it was on fractional work, and I was interested to know about it. At the end of it, I thought, wow, I would really like to do this. I think it's a whole different experience where you start, especially if you're dealing with small, medium-sized businesses, you start helping them, right? You're actually having a real input into their business rather than being part of a larger corporate finance function. And so that's how I found myself where I am.
Yeah, to paint a bit of picture for the listeners. So Carl was actually one of our first fractional ever placements, I believe. Another recruitment business that's based in Dubai. They had an up-and-coming head of finance. They were looking for someone to mentor him to an extent, but I guess bring it to the next level. I'm sure you can give a better overview of that. But, we were very fortunate to get you, and, obviously we won't share any sensitive information, but, what was the sort of...
Well, I was there to do a piece of strategic work. I initially come in, do a review of their systems, their policies, procedures, people, that sort of thing. And off the back of that, you identify some problem areas. Yeah, absolutely. And they asked if I would continue to stay on. One of them was to help develop the FD that they had in place, a young guy, excellent guy, but they wanted him to be a little bit more CFO-ish, shall we say, rather than...
This is the big thing I would say for a lot of SMEs. You're never going to have this massive CFO, 20, 25 years of experience in these up-and-coming companies. And this recruitment business is considerably bigger than the one I'm part of, but they needed that gap between the founders and the head of finance, and it's giving both sides. I think that was the biggest sell. I think obviously thankfully went very well, but everybody was a winner because the incumbent who was the head of finance, he was then getting someone who actually really understands finance, talking his language back and fro, and then not being the intermediary, but you were sort of between the founders of the business, and that's getting information across. The beauty of a fraction is this is so many different ways you can look at it. Even for you then how you came out to us, like you are currently our fractional CFO, and obviously people listening will know that from the lead up, but the feedback obviously was so positive from the client. Then I felt like I'm a bit of a fraud if I'm the one trying to promote this fractional model and we're not even doing it ourselves. And I'm going to be very open and honest on this podcast and give as much information, probably too much, but the whole purpose of this conversation today is to get across what fractionals do, what they should be doing, where there's a bit of a miss because it is still at its infancy. Everyone's fractional these days, but maybe they're not. But it's understanding, like, does this sound like you? Maybe you do need assistance. And where I would say, the experience you've had with Alchemy and this other business, they're very different experience. I think when you did your view of that business, then you reviewed our business. I think you thought maybe ours would be a lot more straightforward, but unfortunately it wasn't.
Yeah.
I just think for me as a founder, whatever you want to call it, but you don't know until you know. And obviously the stuff that you found, the gaps in our business, and for full transparency, we've never had a finance person in the business. We've outsourced to a bookkeeping company, which has been great. And for us to get to the next level, of course, there needs to be a gap. I think you were probably shocked to know that I was a qualified accountant. You've
still are.
But what I'd be keen to understand is, and you can share information, what are the gaps that you've seen, like going into these companies? And you can push it more on my business. We don't bring the business into play, but where are the gaps?
Oh, it's interesting because you said about moving from the larger recruitment company into yours. I think what you find in the larger companies, there is some sort of remnants of procedures, policies in place, which make things a little bit easier when you do your review, right?
Yeah.
And then when you come into a business like yourselves, it's far more dynamic, I would think, in the way that it's operating. But you don't really think about the back office type activities. You're thinking more about
just the revenue
generating. And so there are gaps, right? And those gaps are easier to spot, but harder to fix. Because you kind of be all over the shop a little bit, right?
In the business I'm part of recruitment, you made me think about a different number. In my head, I just think about what are the billings this month?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean what revenues hit the account this month.
Yeah.
And I think getting the mindset of like, that's well and good, Conor, but the invoice doesn't go out for 2 or 3 months, which means you're not getting paid for 4 or 5 months. So even though you think you've had a great month this month, that money's not hitting the account maybe for many months. These are the things which I definitely didn't think about. And it's getting the other point of view. And I said, the beauty about some of your experience, look, obviously you've a very varied career, but obviously the most recent thing in Dulsco, you've worked in a big recruitment, Prisma Thailand, a million years ahead of where we are, but you know what good looks like for the most part. I think when you come in, and that's why fractional people in different industries, that's what I just think there's such a value in having someone that understands the industry. And I know some people that will listen to this say it's finance, numbers are numbers. Yes, to an extent, but for an SME or, that needs a fractional, you need someone who's a plug and play. You don't need someone who needs a month to work out how this business works. How do they make money? Well, someone with this, and I would caveat that by saying recruitment is probably one of the easiest industries of all. That's why there's simpletons like me in it, but it's very easy. It's not that complex. You've no stock, you've nothing. But that's why I think even for more like in retail, FMCG, oil and gas, maybe more complex industries, having someone with that industry experience it's just so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I've come from, I've worked in a number of different industries, right? Everyone has its own nuances, but what you're able to do, I think, when you have that wide cross-section is to start applying different concepts that you would have had, and then you're able to bring them into or apply them to yours. I mean, one of the things that we looked at, wasn't it? We tried to break down your consultants as profit centers.
Yep.
Right? Which was allowing you to monitor billings against the billing multiples against their costs, right? So that's kind of like looking at it from a project perspective.
And so some of these things sound so simple, but if I'm not doing that, I imagine a lot of the other people aren't about it. You're breaking down what is the actual cost per consultant, what are they costing the business, what's their profit, things which we never looked at. And I think especially as well, we're recording this now in May, obviously the ongoing conflict, but the value we've had from you around 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, when obviously the world looked a pretty crazy place, the scenario planning, all that information you gave us, which I wouldn't have done, gave us a lot more comfort.
It gives you a different look on the business, right? You're able to see it in a different perspective because you're seeing it from the point of view of what's my WIP, what's my billings? Oh, I'm doing great. When you slice and dice it in a different way, it gives you a different perspective on how you see it.
And Carl is definitely an accountant, by the way. And I think for any founder or managing director of any SME, there's pros and cons, but obviously it's overall pros. But if you don't like getting called out and stuff, fractional, their job is to be a bit of not a pain. Well, pain's a very strong word, but you're the guy who questions things. While for me personally, my experience, I've obviously ran a business where no one questions everything for the most part. So now having somebody calling you up saying, what is that?
Makes you a little uncomfortable, doesn't it?
It is, but again,
But that's my job.
But these, exactly, as Roy Keane would say, that is your job. But these are the things that actually protects the well-being of the business.
Yeah.
And even, I know this is off the record, but obviously WeAmn has now become a partner in the business.
Yeah.
And having you now part of it, for me, obviously it's great, but for her, I know it gives her a lot more confidence with everything because these are the things which SMEs found, small businesses, a lot of small businesses have partnerships, and having this independent advisor really is a big value.
Yeah.
And you have to have those tough conversations, and your job is to bring up those conversations while, WeAmn and I maybe could kick stuff down the road for a few weeks, months, but then you're saying, like we had our first ever board meeting.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah, that was fun.
Which 5 years into my career, I've never had that. So again, it just, for me, it's making the business more, not corporate, but it is more professional. It is a bit of a feel-good fire. But what I want to dig into now, because I know we're going to have people listening, hopefully, that are working as fractional professionals, aspiring fractional professionals, but how do you see it and how do you feel it sometimes? And we're probably the most painful example of this, but like, where do you feel the biggest value for fractional people? What should you be doing and what are you doing? And I know, position to us now is...
Well, the thing is this, right? I'm not there to run your payroll. I'm there to make sure you don't run out of cash in 6 months' time or whatever, right? I'm there to look at your profitability numbers. I'm not there to be part of your business in respect to I'm assimilated into your business. The beauty of being fractional is that I'm able to give you some hard truths without worrying about my bonus or my job security or whatever the heck it is, right?
The policeman inside the business.
Exactly. And I think that's the important part. And from what we've seen, like fractional in this part of the world is very new.
Very new.
It's very new. I mean, I think I only heard about it when we first started talking, right? But in more mature markets, in Europe, in the UK, in the US, fractional's been going for a while. And I think a lot of the business owners there get to understand what a fractional guy should be doing. Whereas here, they think that I don't have a CFO, so I'll buy one for a few days a week.
The reason why fractional in Dubai, in my opinion, should boom a lot more over Abu Dhabi is that Dubai is full of SME, a lot more so than Abu Dhabi, 10x, 15x, I would say. And there's so many SMEs that my honest view is that we could hire someone full time in the business for, I don't know, 20, 30K, whatever it is. And they'd be there every day and they'd be very good. They'd probably be realistically in this market, maybe newly qualified, second time mover, maybe. You could get someone very, very good, but then you could get someone who's worth their market rate is a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But you're only getting them 2 days a week or 1 day a week or 3 days, whatever.
Yeah.
This person will be a bit grayer, and they'll have no problem speaking at me. Well, the thing is, if I employ someone full time, they're part of the business, which is the key thing. They may feel I'm actually afraid to say something to Conor.
Up, right?
Going to say yes, and it might take me 6 months, 12 months, or maybe it's over a beer with Conor one night. I actually tell him what I really think of what he's doing or the mess he's creating. Well, I think it took you probably 4 days to start saying stuff to me.
Is it that long?
4 hours probably. And that value for any business owner, any SME is invaluable because the biggest, especially in a town like Dubai, we're full of people that they tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. And especially in finance where you're the guy who's, cash is king. That's where the value is. And I just think more and more companies, once you get the exposure to it, and I'm not saying you get rid of this person, there's different ways to skin the cat. Like for us, we didn't have a finance person. The other company that we were fortunate to place you in, they already had a finance person, but they had a different need. Yeah. So it's not a one size fit all. And for you, and again, you can be pretty open. If it's too open, we can edit it anyway. But what were the big gaps you seeing within Alchemy?
I think within Alchemy, when I first came in, you did have your bookkeeper in place who was doing the job very well. The bookkeeper's a bookkeeper, processes your invoices, does your JVs. And I remember, I think we had a conversation and said, has anybody taken you through this? And you went, nope. And I went, oh, okay, fair enough. That's going to be an interesting conversation. We're not bookkeepers. Fractional guys aren't bookkeepers. I'm there to look at your numbers, look at your business. And I think one of the things, just to step back, which makes perfect sense, I think for anybody, any owner that is looking to bring in a fractional guy, get them to do your review first. Get them to look at your business first. Because recruitment, they all, even though you're in the same industry, the way that the business operates, your culture, your ethos, what you look for differs in each one. And so getting a review of what you've got in place, systems-wise, processes-wise, policy-wise.
And for our listeners now, because I know there's another guy we've been fortunate to place, he also does reviews as well. So how long does the review take?
Depends on the size of the company, right?
Okay. Let's say 10-person business.
Yeah, I would say you can get a good idea in about anywhere between 2 to 4 days.
Yeah, I think it was 3 days. So you go into business, you assess everything. And this is quite common, by the way. This isn't just Carl, we have another guy, there's a similar thing. So, you are getting an assessment, you're getting the report, then it's sort of a potential client to either push forward or not push forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You either agree with the review or you don't agree with the review, right? And that's something I think I've said to yourself. I've done these reviews for a number of other companies as well. And I've basically, at the end of it, when I've put the report together, I've said, well, if you don't like it, you're more than willing to go and either throw it in the bin and carry on the way that you're doing, or kind of get a second opinion, go and get somebody else to come in and have a look at it. Because I think sometimes when you're an owner of a business and it's your pet project, and it's emotional. You've got this attachment to it. And for some Herbert like myself to rock up and turn around and say, oi, have you noticed this? You get your back up immediately, right?
Great man for a voice note. If it's over 4 minutes, it's like, this can't be good what he's saying to me here now.
God, look what he said.
I think as well, and again, we want to be as open with people. So the assessment of Alchemy, like where were the gaps? So the bookkeeper was one thing, again, you're paying for service and you're getting the most of that service. There's a bookkeeper, what else?
First of all, you won't get your numbers on time and they weren't complete.
Yeah.
Right? The bookkeeper requires you to review those numbers, and it requires certain people in your company that weren't accountants to act like accountants, right? And so they were being very reactive and not proactive. And I think when we came in, we said, right, okay, let's stop that.
I remember again, my fault, no one else's fault, but we were actually late for the posting, and it killed us for our VAT. So we We had a massive VAT
Yeah.
payment to be made in Q1, which if we accounted for it properly, it would have been half of that.
Yes, exactly.
So this is, again, an unknown thing, which, in my head, I have a rough idea what the VAT should be every quarter based in the billing.
Shocked you a little bit, didn't
It did shock me. I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I totally hard to bring
What's he
down the
doing?
cost. But
Yeah.
again, and this is before Carl joined, but these are the things which, if you were there, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Is the honest reality. And again, I'm at fault, so to be clear on that. But these sort of things, and then I think even simple things which people listen to this and maybe think VAT. You've laid the law down now with the team about bringing receipts in.
Yeah.
Which is something we've never really done to get the VAT going down. So again, my pitch would be, not that you're paying for yourself, but these savings, if we can make these savings over a year, then it's a winner.
Yeah.
I think to give a shout out to Alan as well. I think you're on a call with them.
Yeah, brilliant. Had a sit with Alan on Wednesday to go through their platform. Makes life a hell of a lot easier when it comes down to expenses. The way that it integrates with your accounting function, the way that you're able to set up categories and then link them to accounts, cost accounts.
And as my team say, it's so anal.
Oh,
but you love it.
Oh, I love it. Seriously, I was like, oh, yes. This is great because it makes your life a lot easier and you become a lot more efficient. If you're a lot more efficient, that's a good thing, right?
You said to me last week, we're leaving so much at the table. And for SMEs, every dirham counts, especially in
And the beauty about the Alan product as well is it scans. It has this optical reader that looks at the receipt that you upload, and it kind of goes, that isn't a VAT receipt. That doesn't have a TRN number on it. That doesn't have, and it draws your attention to it, and it sort of says, "You really want to post this into your financials now, into your accounts now." And so it's acting as that gatekeeper as well, right? It's great. It's really good.
And even for example, a big thing I think I've definitely seen the value firsthand is that you're scrutinizing all our costs now.
Yeah.
He's like, why have you been paying for that? But again, these are things which, if you weren't there, obviously the bookkeeper's never going to do that.
No.
They're not there in the office. So again, they seem so simple and straightforward, and people probably listen to going, what sort of shop you're running in there altogether? But don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, because that's not what your primary focus is on, right? I mean, when we first got together, I think your P&L was in Excel. Right. And it was just, well, do you have a look at that? And don't. And so what we've worked on is to put together a proper report, haven't we? And we've got, even though you're a 10-person business, you as an owner still need to understand what's going on in your business, right? You need to know what's happening with your profitability. More important, you need to understand where you are with your cash. And I think that's a big thing. I've always kind of pushed that for a small business, I would be more worried about cash than I would be about your profit percentage. I mean, if you've got your cash in your bank, I would prefer to have $1 million in the bank and have a 2% profit margin. Do you know what I mean? Because I know I'm going to be able to keep going. My business is going to keep going. So that's one of the things that you never had before. We never had that transparency on where we are with
it was just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think that those are the things that we need to, that we bring. And the way that I've operated with Alchemy is completely different to the way I operate with the other ones because you require a different type of fractional guy, right? And I think that's the thing as well. You need to be flexible to the approach that you need. I mean, some companies will look at it and say, well, you need something, we need more work on the funding element of it, working with banks, facilities, those sorts of things in order to move up to the next stage. Others may look at, cash flow projections, forecasts. There's a construction contracting company I'm talking to. Right now, they don't have any exposure when it comes down to project profitability and the cash flows on those projects, right? So those are the things that you kind of have to look at and advise them on. And for yourself, it was about, right, Conor, do you know where you are right now? And it was, well, I have a fair idea, but I don't really know. And then, all right, but do you know about this? And have you seen this? And have you seen this? And you go, oh, okay.
There's a lot of
didn't really think about it that way. And I think that's where you add the value. That's where you start to really...
We're talking all about the great things, the positive things about fractional. You were working at big corporates, you come into the fractional, You've enjoyed working with smaller businesses where you really feel you can make something. But what would you say? What are the challenges? If I was looking into fractional, someone could say it's 2 days. It ends up being a week.
Yeah.
These are the, for someone trying to think of going, because I know a lot of people love the idea of fractional. As you said, you've sort of 2 or 3 sort of clients on the go. But there is obviously not negatives, but like, I think it's also important to tell the other side of the story where you could get into a client and maybe you're desperate, they're desperate, and 2 days actually becomes 3 days. Or then I know for a fact you've worked over weekends for us, which I'm not paying you for.
No.
But
I have invited to your monthly meals.
Come to our lunches, But just to give people as well who are thinking about it, what have you found to be the challenges, etc.?
The biggest challenge for me was coming from a corporate environment where corporate is very procedural. It is very structured. And you do have that kind of mindset. And then you move into something that is, small, medium size, which is far more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
It's far more fluid. And if you approach it if you're very blinkered in that respect, you're going to struggle because you've got to sit back and say, this is a journey. You're never going to be fully proceduralized.
Yeah.
Right. But we start to look at things which are important for the business. And like I said, you get to feel that when you do your review. And that's the beauty of the review. You get to feel the company. You get to get the vibe of who the owners are, what their concerns are, what their worries are, and you're able to.
There's an element of mirroring, I guess, probably in it. Like you've got to deal with different people, different personalities, and that's probably one big thing. For anyone who's working in fractional or aspiring that. Especially if you have a few clients, everyone's different.
Yeah.
A lot of founders have egos. There's I have at the best of times, but no one's perfect. No one's perfect. No one's perfect. But I think it's a different probably proposition when you go into corporate. You're ultimately dealing with an employee at the top for the most part, where you go into this environment where it is someone's baby, and if you start questioning it, and when you have everyone tapping me on the back, and then I don't know where you come in. But thankfully, I have Wiam anyway, so she.
And you've got to be able to deliver the bad news or the good news, which way you want to call it. But you've got to do it in a way that is sensitive to the owner, right, and the founder, because they've put their heart and soul into this business, right. And like I said, for some Herbert to rock up and in 3 days turn around and say, "Oh, by the way, this is something you've got to do it tactfully." And and the thing is this: there's no problems. You're putting together a solution, right? A roadmap to improve it. And if you deliver it in that way, rather than there's this problem, and then you decide to walk away, you're not doing your job. If you turn around and you say, well, there's this issue, there's this potential issue. Now we can counteract that. We can mitigate that if we put this plan in place. Right. Now you're reframing the whole thing. You're taking something and you're turning it into something that's positive, right? It's a roadmap that allows the owner to be able to see a solution to an issue that you've found.
I think, again, I'm going to put you a bit on the spot on this one. Fractional businesses that need fractional SMEs, I have a position for us. We were trying to get to the next level, but to put on the other foot, say the business was doing really good. Yeah. Say a business was flying. Yeah. They're doing brilliant, not us. But a business, like where would your value be for them? Like they're in a good position. For someone listening who's in that position, who's fortunate that their business is going through the gears, what value could you add to them?
It's a nice position to be in, right? When you're sitting in that kind of company and you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, okay.
Big cash at bank, you'd be very excited.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, happy days, right? Now, the thing about that is that the owners obviously want to expand, and they have these visions for how their business is to grow. You have to make sure that whatever that progress is done in a very methodical way, that it doesn't put undue stress on the business itself. Because they could be looking at investing, in something new, going into new markets, going into new countries. Now, how much cash and how much capital does that tie up? What's required around it? Sounds a great idea on paper. Well, let's go and open an office in Saudi. Happy days. We're going to, corner the market. But hold on, have you thought about what it takes in order to get there? Oh yeah, I need to go in and get a license. I need to do this, I need to do that. Right? Oh well, how much is that going to cost you? How much capital are you going to tie up in it? How much money is? And you put the plan together so that you can do a worst case, a medium case, a best case plan for them. But at least it's something tangible that you're covering all of the bases. So that growth is structured. That growth is monitored. It's important that it's not knee-jerk. It's important that you sit with the owners and say, good idea. Now let's evaluate it.
Yeah. The big thing as well is that my expectation with someone who's fractional is you are a plug and play. Now, that is, if you hire someone full-time, you probably want them to grow into the role. Otherwise, they're going to get bored straight away. While your solution or fractional solution, it is, I'm expecting you to turn this around pretty quickly within reason. So I know you as a person from working with you, your problem solver, your attention to detail can be quite interesting to view. Yeah, to put it lightly. I was like, it's a Sunday evening, just relax, have a glass of wine or something. But just to give our listeners, talk us through like a recent scenario where you've had to, parachute yourself into a business and resolve a systematic problem.
I'm working alongside a company at the moment that asked me to come in and do a review, right? Now, one of the things that when you went in to do it, because of my background in that industry, I was able to identify quite quickly what the issue was. As such, the review was initially supposed to be like a 4-day review, turned it into a 2-day review because it was quite obvious, what you needed to do. The thing then is to start ensuring that act upon it. Now, whether they want me to be part of that journey, I don't know, right? It's not my decision to make in that respect. But what I can do is dip in and dip out. And this is the beauty of fractional, right? If, for instance, you turn around and you say, you need this resource in this role to be able to do X, Y, Z for you, right? And you need to develop this in your system, or you need to develop this in your financials or your controls, right? You need to develop these controls or that controls to mitigate whatever risks as you've got in place. Now, I could walk away at that point in time, but I know this business. I still know this business. I still know this industry, right? Now, if they want to call me up 2 months, 3 months down the line and say, hey, we've got this. Do you want to come in and do another quick review for us? I can come in and add value that way and turn around and say, right, you're on track. You seem to be doing this. You seem to be doing that. This all looks good. This is what I would recommend to take you on to the next stage. Yeah. And that's the beauty of what a fractional guy is and what he does. He adds value. He's a value adder, right? He's not your guy who should sit there 5 days a week and he can come in, he can come out. And if you work with him and you know his personality, you like the personality, you like what he does, he gives it to you straight. He's not gonna shit you around a bit. That's somebody that can help take your business forward, right? I think that's the big thing about it.
I think the big thing as well, and for anyone listening, to be very honest, like Carl's come into Alchemy, and unfortunately, he's probably had to do a lot of the heavy lifting at the start. Yeah. Probably not what fractional should be doing, but given we didn't have the resources, etc., he's probably had to do a lot more heavy lifting than he would want. However, there is an end in sight for that, and I think hopefully sooner you can be focusing on So the point I'm trying to make is for anyone that is thinking about a fractional is that if you go into somewhere at the start, it's probably not going to be perfect at the start. 100%. However, if you persevere with the business, then eventually you'll do the heavy lift and you'll get things in order, and then it'll be the value add side of things. And I think that's where the fractional space will get to. I think for people I think just because it's such a buzzword, especially in Dubai, fractional this, fractional that, it's not perfect. It's not exactly where it's at. But for example, 4 or 5 years down the line, if we were a lot more control of business, then you could come in straight away. You'd be like, yeah, I can do this. While I think the point which people need to be aware of is that if you go into a business, it's not going to be perfect from the very start, especially if it's a business like us. Hope it's never. Hope it's not too many about. But you have to accept that you have to roll your sleeves up at the start.
Oh, I agree, and I think you get that. You get that sense when you do the review, and I think that's why it's very important, right? You know what you're going to get into. You know what the business needs, and every business is going to need something different. It's going to need a different touch, whether it's a heavy touch, heavy lifting, whether it's something more advisory in the way that it operates. I think what you need to understand, and I think what we need to get away from is the fact that we are not contractors. We're not temporary staff, right? And I think that's where the founders have to start thinking differently about what we do. You're never going to get the value out of fractional guys if you think that they're contract labor, right? Yeah. We've got to have the ability to sit down and look at your business and be able to, with yourself. I mean, we talked after the review and said, right, well, I can do this, and this for you. And we agreed on a set of outcomes, right? Yeah. And we said, that's what we need to get done. Yeah. And you said, knock yourself out. You're in charge. And we went for it.
Several more outcomes now.
Yeah. But that's part of the process. That's part of the evolution. That's part of the journey. Once we get that out of the way, we move on to something else. Yeah. You may have turned around at that point in time and said, well, Carl, you've done all this in place. You've done your job. You've met your outcomes and your deliverables. I think I'm going to bring in somebody to be able to do X, Y, Z from now on. Right. But then you may have turned around afterwards and say, but now we're thinking of doing some forecasts and some budgets. Would you be able to come in and do that for us? Right. And I think that's the beauty of having a fractional guy.
Yeah. Because again, I know we're running a bit over in time, but like the way I would see it for, having been hands-on now involved in it is that, you could have a fractional guy where you have them in 3 days a week, 2 days a week. They clean up whatever mess you have, then you're like, maybe it's only once a week we need you, or once a month we need you. Yeah. But again, that person fully understands your business. Then you hire someone to do the day-to-day. But again, for our listeners that are thinking about a fractional hire, and look, it can be a fractional tax person, a fractional finance person. We have fractional treasury people. I personally think the tax fund's going to be very big. But
I think so too.
Yeah, because you can get a very senior person who can just come in, because tax people sometimes you're like, you don't need them 5 days a week. So.
And especially if you're in different jurisdictions as well, right?
Transfer pricing and all the good stuff. So, how I pitch it to anyone who's listening that is thinking about it is that you've got to do a few different scenarios. One, I think if you've got a younger finance professional in the team, up and coming, not quite at the CFO level yet, based on the years of experience, and you want that extra bit of comfort and also to mentor that person and help guide that person to the next level, fractional is a great option. For someone like our business, where we actually had no finance team,
yeah,
that's the hard yards ones. That's
that's
when you find a few
interesting one.
Skeletons in the closet. That one, that's a big option, and I can say personally, that it's been a great help to us. But then you're also going to have different scenarios where you need someone for if somebody's resigned, it's been a bad resignation, or something's happened, they've had to leave immediately. Maybe you're not going to find someone for 3-6 months. You can get a plug and play even while the hiring is happening. Yeah, that's another option. They're the 3 scenarios that I've seen firsthand that we've been fortunate enough to place fractional professionals in. But I'm sure there is more scenarios we're going to come over time. Yeah. But I think
I think it's an exciting space, and like you said, tax, 100%.
Yeah, because even people with tax, and Rudika has been fortunate. She's got a good tax base. Like people don't want to hire a tax manager for 25, 30K a month. To put it frankly to you, you could get someone who's worth 60, 70, 80K a month for 15K a month. Yeah. If you get them for a couple of days. We've got one lady in with a company 2 days a week, and she's doing great. And
I agree. And also, you think about it, the way that the UAE and especially Dubai for small medium businesses, the amount of regulation and governance that are in place right now as well that smaller companies have to adhere to. Yeah, I was in one place and you realized that you were taking money out of the business, but there was the jurisdiction which they were operating in needed to have a board resolution in place, needed to have proposed dividends. You need to all of the structure around governance that was required was missing. And
until it becomes a material amount.
Exactly right.
That's when it's as I said, I think tax people definitely pay for themselves.
100%.
Fractional CFOs do to an extent.
100%.
But look, Carl, I just want to, from our side, thank you. You've been a great asset to the business, and hopefully we continue.
Oh, thank you for letting me help you
for many years. And look, I do hope that this conversation has been open, honest, shared the realities.
And if anybody wants to, any guys out there that are looking to move into fractional and want to
just reach out to questions,
just reach out to me,
reach out to me, Carl, and we'll connect you. But yeah, thank you very much, and great conversation. You did great.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks for spending your time with us and being part of the Alchemy Uncensored community. And of course, a big thank you to Alan for supporting this season and helping bring these conversations to life. We'll be back soon with more insights and more voices from across the region.